Bienvenue, Tawau, and welcome to Westwood, everyone. A special welcome this morning to those who are first-time visitors or consider themselves newcomers or are returning after an extended absence. Westwood is a compassionate Unitarian Universalist community where you are welcome to explore your spiritual beliefs and decide for yourself what they may or may not be. Where you are welcome regardless of your gender, who you love, your wealth, or your education. Where reverence for the earth and belief in the dignity of every person inform our ethics. And where music is an expression of our joy, worship brings us together to celebrate what is important in our lives, and acts of justice are a symbol of our hope. Westwood is a welcoming, nurturing, and inclusive community where all people are invited to rest, grow, and serve the world. This service is part of the Meaning Making series. We are part of a group of 15 Canadian Unitarian Universalist congregations who are sharing resources to create an 8-part series on the roots of resilience. This service on Radically Inclusive is the third in the series. Tanse, hello and bonjour. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and Nakota Sioux. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are with us today, those who have gone before us, and the youth who inspire us. A tradition that dates back centuries, land recognition now calls us to acknowledge that we are Treaty 6 people, to remember our responsibility to deepen our understanding of treaty, to participate in and support the ongoing process of truth, reconciliation, and healing. Good morning and welcome. My name is Pamela Bunge. My pronouns are she and her, and I am your service leader this week, and I'm so glad you all joined us here today. Our speaker this morning is Reverend Samaya Oakley from the Calgary Unitarian Church, and our technical help today will be Hannah, Bill Lee, and Rebecca Patterson, and our wonderful coffee host is David Williamson. After the service, we invite all of you to visit, chat, and discuss any questions you might have. Next week, please join us for Dreaming the Impossible by Alara Stephanie Gaudette and our second Sunday potluck. To receive information about our upcoming service and events, please sign the guest book on the table at the back and include your email address. You can also sign up to receive the e-newsletter on our website. The Reverend Gordon McKeeman reminds us that deep calls unto deep, joy calls unto joy, light calls unto light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, and of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be the bearer of the light, wherever we are. We come into this circle, each carrying the experiences and understandings of our lives. This makes us distinct from one another. Yet we also come carrying a common desire to strengthen our congregations and our movement, ourselves and one another. That gives us unity. As we strive to balance those distinctions and that unity, we light this chalice to show a way. Please join us as you're willing and able to sing Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Each week during our Sunday service, we take a few minutes to acknowledge the gifts we both bring to and receive from this compassionate community. Gifts of talent, time, and treasure. Today we are blessed with the musical talent of Harmonia, as well as the gifts of time and service from those who plan, greet, coordinate our sound and video systems, and clean up afterwards. If you wish to make a gift of treasure, the information for doing so is on the right-hand side of this slide. Please join us from singing From You I Receive. This is the season of anticipation, the marking of time leading up to an expected event. Here at Westwood, we are marking the weeks leading up to winter solstice, the turning of the earth, which places us at the farthest angle from the sun, the shortest day, and the longest night of the year. The candle of peace represents the promise of peace in the world and in our lives. We light this candle in the south, the direction associated with the element of fire, the desire for life, and the direction of the heart. We acknowledge our needs for life and love and focus our efforts towards being effective ambassadors of peace. Now we will sing the Westwood Advent Carol. Candles of Joy and Concern is a moment in our week that gives us the opportunity to hear and express something important that is going on in our lives and the lives of those around us, to celebrate what brings us joy and to share what is weighing on our hearts. For those of us who are online, please raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. For those in the building, you are invited to come forward and speak, then light your candle as the next person speaks, or to light a candle in silence. We are also happy to bring the microphone to you if you wish. And I'll light one final candle for all those whose joys and concerns remain in our hearts. Please join us in the affirmation. May the light of these candles inspire us to use our power to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to serve the Spirit of truth in loving affection and trusting hope. I now invite you into a few minutes of shared silence, following these words by Nancy Reed McKee. Sit and rest for a minute. Take several deep breaths in and out again, calling your attention to this space. Attention. Pay attention. Pay attention to where you are right now. I mean where you are, and where you are. You are here in this community, in this sanctuary, in this province, in this country, on this beautiful blue planet, whirling through the tailspin of a galaxy. You are unique, You are made of cells and hormones. You are a mix of thoughts, emotions, values. You are the inheritors of your parents' and ancestors' dreaming. You are part of the human inhabitants on this earth. You are. You exist. You are breathing. You are still. You are connected. You are present. You have a holy spark inside you. You are here now. You are paying attention. Blessed be. We'll now have a few moments of silence. Now I welcome you back to this space. We're going to have some music by Harmonia. The Reverend Samaya Oakley currently serves as the minister for the Calgary Unitarians. She discovered Unitarianism Shore Unitarian Church and quickly became active continentally throughout the youth office of the UUA. She holds at the heart of her ministry the importance of relationships and compassion. Reverend Samaya is a strong believer in social justice and believes that our theology calls us to be active agents for love and justice in the world. She holds at the heart of her ministry the importance of relationships and compassion. She is a strong believer in social justice and believes that our theology calls us to be active agents for love and justice in the world.
I am so delighted to be with you on this December day, a time when the night lengthens, we draw the curtains, light the candles, bask in the warmth of the fires that keep us warm. I'm the Reverend Samaya Oakley, and I humbly serve Calgary Unitarians as their minister. Many of you might know me from the work I've done nationally, either with the Widening the Circle program or the Truth Healing and Reconciliation work. I've learned a lot in that work. I've learned a lot about myself, about our communities, and about our denomination. As I've grappled with the truth of what happened to Indigenous peoples in Canada, as I've grappled with the truth of how people from the global majority are treated, the more I come away with the understanding that an important part of this work is the need to shift our worldviews, to begin to understand that there are different ways of being in the world. As Unitarian Universalists, one of the ways in which we do this is to examine the worldviews that get in the way of evolving and transforming ourselves into the anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural communities that we really claim we want to be. Every culture has its own worldview, and by that I mean that every culture has its own complex and comprehensive model of how the world and the universe works and how to move and act within it. This is the messaging that begins as we are infants in a process that's called enculturation, where we inevitably grow up with a set of beliefs and values about the world embedded within our consciousness, and it begins to shape every aspect of our experiences as a human being. Not only does this process happen within the individual, it happens within societies as well. One way to think about this is to think about the symbols that exist all around us. It's these symbols that contain what is called a collective mythic consciousness. It began with cave art, sculptures, personal ornaments, and musical instruments. As an example, I was honored to officiate at my first ever wake, which was an experience. We had toasts and music, we sang, and people shared reflections, and a piper was there. Now, when I first heard that a piper was going to be there, I kind of went, ooh, that's going to be a bit loud in this small space, but it was actually a really tiny pipe. And I got to talking with the piper, and he told me that there are many different types of pipes, and he shared with me that there are villages in France with each one having their own specific pipe. Each one a little different than the other. And just in case you need another example of the symbolic that is all around us, that is involved, contained in this collective mythic consciousness, just think about the symbol of an apple and how much it has shifted over the years from that of the forbidden fruit to that of a global empire. In her TED Talk in 2009, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie explores the negative influences that a quote-unquote single story can have and identifies the roots of these stories. Adichie argues that single stories often originate from simple misunderstandings or one's lack of knowledge of others. but that these stories can also have a malicious intent to suppress other groups of people due to prejudice. People, especially in their childhood, are impressionable and vulnerable when it comes to single stories. It's the single story that we receive from the media and the literature, which causes us to make assumptions about a group of people. Consider the simple act of providing a warm and welcoming act of greeting. In many Western cultures, a firm handshake with good, clear eye contact, or sometimes even a simple fist bump, is considered a warm and respectful greeting when meeting strangers. And so if you were to meet a person from Tibet and they stuck their tongue out at you, you might take it as an offense. And yet the truth of the matter is that it's a greeting that shows you come in peace. It started the way that the monks would greet an extremely bad king. So our worldviews develop implicitly as we grow up, from our family, our friends, the culture all around us. And here's the insidious part of it. When it's formed, we become barely even aware of it. It moves into our unconsciousness. So we're barely aware of how the choices we make about how the world operates, and therefore our worldview becomes inflexible, difficult to change. Try taking one of the Harvard implicit bias tests to get a glimpse as to how your own biases about a group of people operate. Today, as Unitarian Universalists, we are being asked to shift our worldview, to create a community that truly follows through on the promises that we make. The promise to create a space where everyone feels like they belong. Belonging is an outcome of the work that we do in diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Unitarian Universalist Association's Widening the Circle of Concern is a report that was issued in 2020 from the Commission on Institutional Change. And there's a whole chapter in there dedicated to hospitality and belonging and inclusion. And here's just a portion of the introductory paragraph in that chapter, and I quote, "Our work concludes that Unitarian Universalists continue to repel many of the people who would otherwise provide the resources to fuel our continued growth. Through our predominantly white congregations and organizations, we may see themselves as welcoming. Without any particular practices, they continue to mirror the kinds of harms done to people of color and other marginalized groups in our larger society." And I end the quote there. It's no wonder that when I say, when you walk through your doors, or any door to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, your work is just beginning, because we are being asked by those of difference to begin to see and accept that there are other ways of being in the world, and to become curious about them, and actively engage in learning so that we can learn new ways of being. If we are truly building a new way of being in community, moving from an I culture to a we culture, if we accept that this culture shift that we're talking about is a central calling of our faith, then it makes sense to examine how the gift of belonging, creating a space where we all belong, can draw the circle even wider. Let's take a moment to reflect on this as we hear our hymn number 1013, "Open My Heart."
Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me
Let me unpack what I mean by an I culture and a we culture. As Unitarian Universalists, we've inherited a culture that emphasizes the needs of the individual. In many of our congregations, we are aware that people are often primarily concerned with what they are going to get out of something, or what the congregation is doing for them, even if only unconsciously. I can remember so many conversations about how we're now moving into a consumer mentality when it comes to church, when in fact, it takes every single one of us to create the communities that we aspire to be. In cultures around the world, providing food and hospitality is seen as one of the most important gifts of welcome that we can offer. In every civilization around the world, we have used food as a way of bonding, socializing, and connecting with others. It's through cultural foods that another story is found, one whose ingredients include the chosen, the tastes, the smells, and the colors. These are all stories of love. These are all stories of struggle and pride and passion. And think about the ways in which you provide hospitality in your congregation, through the smiles, the invitation to engage in conversation, the foods that we provide, the songs that we sing. Are we operating out of an I culture mindset, thinking that someone else will do what needs to be done? The I culture is a worldview that is based on disconnection, telling us that we're split within ourselves between our mind and our body, that as individuals, we're separate from each other, and that a fundamental gap exists between humans and the rest of the natural world. It is that worldview that is no longer working for us, and because of that, many of us are scrambling for safety, holding on desperately because it's the only thing we know. Jeremy Lent, author of The Web of Meaning, says that our worldviews are like the foundations of a house. If it's faulty, then everything else might collapse. As we live into the climate emergency that is facing us all, as we face gaping inequality, as we face rising division, I think we have to ask the question, is there another way? We cultures tend to focus on the question of what is best for us all, realizing that what affects one affects us all. There's a core wisdom that people have known throughout history, and it's been dismissed in our Western worldview. That core wisdom is that at the deepest levels, we are all interconnected. Many of us in the room hear a resonance with our 7 principles of the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. The integrated worldview breaks down many of the barriers that tend to separate different forms of knowledge and activity in modern society. It's a worldview that intricately connects science and spirituality, intellect and emotion, the mind, the body, the spirit. Humans as deeply connected with nature and spiritual insight with political engagement. They are all connected in an extended web of meaning and experience. With the adoption of our 8th principle to accountably dismantle system in ourselves and in our institutions, we are called to be a catalyst to the needed shift of our cultural paradigm. This is work we need to do if we are truly to evolve and transform ourselves into the anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural communities that we claim we want to be. When we enter and embrace a we culture, we are creating a place where every single person who walks through the doors knows that they have found a place where they can belong. When we embrace a we culture, we begin to truly live into building a new way. One that can feed the needs of every being in this beautiful planet. One where every single one of us is working to be free. And knowing that until we are all free, no one is free. One that can feed our every need with peace, freedom, and love as our cry. May it ever be so. Amen. Namaste. Blessed be.
We'll now have our second song played by Harmonia. As you go out into the world, remember to be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, and be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we are together again to light it anew. Chalice extinguishing words are adapted from Pat Uribe Lyche's reading entitled Different Yet United. We come from many places, along different paths, bringing different truths. We come with different histories and different realities, and yet we come together as one people, with faith that we can use our differences to heal ourselves and each other, to bring wholeness to a fractured world. We come seeking to find community, to find acceptance of who we are. In this place, we may find others who are much like us, and others who are much different. As the chalice is extinguished, let us place a spark of its light upon our hearts to remind us that we are a people taught by different stories, with many voices, but always one people, working for a world where love creates justice and justice gives birth to peace.